We hope you're enjoying another edition of the NPH Hour here on News Talk Saga 960 AM. I'm your host, Jason Thom, as we shift from the men's national team over to the women's national team, who are currently back in Tampa at Canada Basketball's home away from home for this summer. The women's squad participated in the Americup last week, which ended in a less than ideal fashion. In the semifinals, Canada was up against another Olympic-bound country in Puerto Rico, who were also hosting the event, and even though crowd size was limited, it was a loud and hostile environment, which was a great opportunity for Team Canada's coaching staff to get a look at a couple of collegiate players they had on their roster and provide them with some international experience that really is different than any other basketball competition you can find. Canada lost that game by 4 in a contest where they battled back consistently late in the game. Then in the bronze medal game, they went up against Brazil with a number of veterans and an average age 3 years older than that of Canada, who had 3 teenagers with them. And in a game that went double overtime, the Brazilians simply outlasted the Canadians, who once again were battling back throughout the contest. Canada really hurt themselves by shooting poorly from both three-point range and the free throw line, but reinforcements are on their way as the 3 Canadians playing in the WNBA this season, Natalie Achonwa, Bridget Carleton, and Kia Nurse, will be joining the team as their pro league takes a break for the upcoming Olympic Games. The Canadian women's team is currently ranked 4th in the world, so expectations are higher than ever for a team that as recently as 2 Olympics ago were a long shot to even make the games. And upon the return of the team from Puerto Rico, head coach Lisa Thomaidis took some time to chat with me about everything related to the journey of this program and how far it and the game itself has come in Canada and across the world. Lisa Thomaidis, University of Saskatchewan head coach and the head coach of the Canadian senior women's national team, fresh off some invaluable experience at the Americup in Puerto Rico last week. Ending the tournament with back-to-back losses is never what a team wants to experience, but every FIBA game is so valuable to push things forward. And it seemed like, some of your young players, coach, had a chance to learn on the fly in a tough environment in Puerto Rico. And it's something that I know you always talk about is so invaluable for the program and the players themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Anytime we get a chance to put some of our younger players in those types of environments, I think what they gain from it is just invaluable. I think our program's really been built on giving opportunities to some young up-and-comers early in their careers so that it pays dividends later on. You think about, Kim Gaucher and Natalie Achonwa and Kia Nurse, they all were very early entry into the national team system, either 16 or 17 years old. And now you see the impact that it has later on in their careers. And it was certainly an experience for Letitia and Aaliyah and some others that were, playing at this level for one of their first times on an international, scene.
And walking away without a medal is not something that you're used to, especially at the Americup. You've done so well in the past, but let's be honest here, just playing and getting back on the floor was a big deal in itself. The last time you were on the floor together, February 2020. Now, what was great is you booked your ticket to the Olympics at that point. But what was the feeling, despite those final 2 losses, to just have the team back together? Because this really is a family.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, leaving Americup without a medal is not something we're accustomed to. We're silver medalists and then back-to-back gold medalists at Americup. And so finishing 4th is certainly a disappointment for us in terms of our expectations and what our goals were heading into the tournament. But on a grander scheme and, when you kind of zoom out, we really haven't been together for 16 months. It was our first time back on the court. We had, 2.5 weeks of training camp, a different roster, missing some athletes, dealing with a retirement, throwing some young ones into the fire. So a lot that we were dealing with, not to provide excuses, but in the bigger scope, what we wanted to get out of this were some close games. We wanted to see how people and how our team responded in an environment like that, in big moments. and really to give us an idea of where we need to improve. It's not going to help us going into Tokyo with any sort of false sense of security, thinking that we're good at this moment in time, because it's impossible to think that being away from one another for 16 months and then coming together, we're a finished product. So it's going to help us fast track the learning process and the development process that we're going to need to go through over the next month before, we tip off in Tokyo.
And cause and effect is something I love to look at related to Canadian basketball. And one example that stands out to me, 2015, Toronto, Canada. Canada beats the U.S. on national television here, the program's first ever Pan American Games gold medal. And at that point, I'm just going to pick a name out, like an Aaliyah Edwards is 13 years old. And now she's a budding NCAA star, youngest player with you in camp. As someone who has built and loves to build like yourself, how much does it excite you to see those sort of things happen within the program? Like you said, when you zoom out and look at women's basketball in Canada as a whole.
Yeah, like you said, that moment in Canadian basketball history was huge for our program. To be able to play in Toronto, to play in front of our fans, a meaningful event like the Pan Am Games against the Americans, beating them who have future WNBA stars on that roster, was just monumental. And I think just really set us up for inspiring that next generation. Like you said, Aaliyah was 13 years old at the time. I don't know where she was, if she was watching the game, but you'd like to think that it has had an impact on the development of our game since then. And yeah, so that's been huge. Love seeing these young ones up and coming, and just what the future of our team is going to look like, and the impact that they're going to have. So it just speaks to how important it is to be playing in your home country as often as you can, to be able to, for people to see like the product that's out there, the level of talent, the level of competition that's being played on the international stage.
The strength from experience, it goes to the coaching staff as well. And I want to go back to head coach Allison McNeil and the team earning the last spot for the 2012 London Olympics, making the run to the quarterfinals. You lose to the U.S., they end up winning gold. But how much will you carry the spirit of that team and obviously some of the players that played and the coaches with you when you get back onto the floor in Tokyo?
Yeah, that moment was a massive one as well, because it had been the culmination of years and years and years of hard work and dedication from the athletes and the staff, and this vision and this commitment to what Canada can be on the podium. It can get to an Olympic Games. It can be a big time player on the international scene. That really was a dream back in 2001 when I first started. And then in 2012 to actually realize that dream and to get back to the Olympic Games and to put on a great showing. And again, that was probably one of the first times that we played on national television. So the moments and the memories that you have from times like that will last a lifetime for sure. And the group that kind of put in that work to get us to where we are today, we'll never forget that, because it was a fantastic group full of character and commitment that had bought in for a number of years with the belief that we could get back to the Olympic Games. And so that really laid the foundation for what we're doing now. We have a number of athletes who are still with us that, did that, that achieved that amazing accomplishment back then. The Miranda AMs and the Kim Gauchers and the Natalie Achonwas to still be with us and to carrying this team forward to now a third Olympic Games is pretty remarkable.
And the thing that's tough when you talk about the Olympics is that it's 4 years apart. And for some people, casual observers, that's going to be the last time maybe that they watched women's basketball at a Canadian national level. Yeah. But one thing that they may not realize is that Canada has a long history of female head coaches, and that's not always been the case in countries in the international stage. You could see it in the Americup as well. Yeah. And now you have a former player from the national team, Tamara Tatum, who's the head coach at U of T. How proud are you to come from a country that really is a leader when it comes to putting women in positions in the coaching ranks and kind of seeing that the now spread to the next generation?
Yeah, so proud of Canada basketball and their commitment. Like they value putting women in leadership positions and have led this national team for a number of quadrennials, with the Kathy Shields and the Bev Smiths, and then on to Allison McNeil, and then myself. Not just as far back as 2012. I think there were only 3 female coaches at the Olympic Games out of 12 teams. 2016, I think it was the same, 3 or maybe 4. So you're looking at probably 25% of the teams there are being coached by women. Probably in the last 3 to 4 years, there has been a discernible difference as far as representation of women being on the bench and head coaching roles. But some of my earliest memories of being with the national team was Allison sitting in the first seat and myself, and then her husband, Mike McNeil, in the third seat. Yeah, the customary officials greeting, they would continually, of course, at that time also, the officials were 99% men. And so they'd come down and walk past Allison, walk past myself, and extend a hand to Mike McNeil. And he would just point. He wouldn't put out his hand. He'd just say, that's the head coach right there. So yeah, even just that assumption that you wouldn't have a female head coach. So yeah, super proud of Canada basketball and to be part of this legacy around having female leaders and women coaching women, and hopefully that continues on, and to have Tamara now coaching at U of T, and a number of other former national team athletes have now kind of dipped their feet in the coaching pool as well, getting interested in that. So hopefully they'll be able to continue to give back. They have such amazing experiences and knowledge to share. So passionate about the game, so passionate about being Canadian, that hopefully they do get involved and continue to go down that track.
And that's a great lead into my next question about Canada Basketball's Mad Love campaign and members of the program writing letters to their younger self. And in yours, you said, you will be compelled to pursue a career that may seem impossible. Basketball will take you around the world. Does the achievement of getting to this point in your life as a former player and seeing the sport reach new heights, does that allow you to enjoy this journey, as you said earlier, kind of zooming out? Because it is so, you get so focused on the games and this, but at the same time, from the macro level, how far things have come. Have you had a chance to really say, this is great?
It's so funny you say that. Yeah, I think probably the first chance I've had to think about that would be during the pandemic, where you aren't coaching and you're forced to take a break and maybe forced to reflect on, things that you've done or achieved and things that you still are really driven to do. So, most of the time you're just so focused on the moment and the next day in front of you, or the next week in front of you, the next game in front of you, the next scout, that you can really lose sight of that. And, you just kind of go from one thing to the next. So that's typically my approach, is really focused on, what do we need to do next? Yeah. How can we be better tomorrow? But I'd say in the last year, definitely had a bit of an opportunity to look back and reflect a little bit, which is, I think really healthy.
Absolutely. And even without wins and losses, this is just an amazing group you have. And outside the sport and outside what happens at the Olympics, what do you want Canadians to know about this group and their character?
Oh yeah, the team is full of amazing women who are more than just basketball players. And as amazing as they are on the court, they're equally as amazing off the court in terms of their interests, their talents, their passion for social justice and change. I think the list goes on and on. So I think it's equally important to get to know them as people and what they're using their platform for. And it's all for some amazing initiatives and efforts, all for the greater good. And it's been really inspiring following them and watching them as leaders, not only in the sporting community, but just as ambassadors for sport and ambassadors for change.
Coach Thomaidis, thank you so much for your time on the NPH Hour. You've always been so welcoming to me personally and thoughtful for the amount of questions I've had for you over the years, really trying to understand not really the women's game, but what comes with women's basketball and in this country. So good luck on your journey as it continues towards the Olympics, and congratulations on inspiring young men and women that, we really don't even know about yet. That's the most special part to me. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Really appreciate you taking the time to reach out and share our stories.
The Olympics are less than a month away, and it remains to be seen if both our men's and women's team will be there. And if they are, there's no telling what a dual medal performance would do for the sport and the program, especially when it comes to future funding. But no matter what happens on the floor, from what you've heard today from a player on the men's side and the head coach on the women's side, the impact of representation and the buy-in to something bigger than oneself is impossible to measure, especially in the day and age of immediate gratification. I can share a personal story of seeing it firsthand. Watching Canada's final 2 games in the Americup with my 7-year-old daughter, who's hearing female voices broadcast the games, who's seeing a female head coach, female referees, women from all walks of life from countries in North, Central, and South America. At halftime, my daughter read a book titled The Magic of Basketball, written and illustrated by Kayla Alexander, who's on the floor representing her country. That is impactful. And now the men's national team, taking to the floor with players making millions in the NBA, alongside those raising their families in countries halfway around the world, playing the game that they love. And young men just starting their path in their careers, playing with those who helped pave the way before them. With boys and girls sitting at home who haven't played basketball in over a year, captivated by the idea of their country coming in first place in a must-win tournament played right here on their home soil. Win or lose, those kids will be inspired to chase their dreams in the game that they love, to coach, to officiate, to scout, to train, to be involved any way they can, because they look at that screen and see people that look like them, that love the same game they love, that started out the same way they did, with a ball, a hoop, and a dream. That's all you need. North Pole Hoops is here to support Canadian basketball. You can find us on Instagram at North Pole Hoops and at northpolehoops.com. This has been another edition of the NPH Hour on News Talk Saga 960 AM.